Oops.
Now are we ready?
We're live?
All right, I'm gonna wait.
Did you hit the
Wait.
go button?
That's
Hit the
all
go
right.
button?
Testing. One,
We'll just
two,
make sure.
three. Testing.
Oh, it's working now. Yep.
Okay. Huh?
Is it? Is it?
Yeah, I
I'm
had
gonna
a-
wait
I
until
had-
somebody goes, yeah, I got you now.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I had a redundant button push.
He doesn't work at that station anymore.
Okay, now they can hear it. So what you missed was I told everybody where the ark was. And
Oh, well.
so
Well,
I'm
we
sorry.
do have to
I'm
rewind.
sorry.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
You, Dave, and I know where it's at, and the rest of the people at the table now know. But I'll cover it in next week's class. Now, what we did, just quickly, I just said Shabbat Shalom, welcome, and John had something that struck him this time when we worked through. So go ahead,
Yeah,
John.
but it didn't hurt too much. Anyway, one of the things that caught my attention that every time you read the scriptures or listen to it here being told by somebody else, you get a different take sometimes. And this time, what caught my ear was Moshe is up on the mountain with Jehovah. And previous to this, the Creator says, I am your God and you are my people. And so Aaron's down at the foot of the mountain, whipping up a gold statue so everybody can idolatry all over the place.
Yep.
And Jehovah looks at Moses and says, your people
Yeah.
are sitting down there.
Right.
And it's like, to me, it was like, when two parents are talking, one goes, your son
Yep,
is
that's
in
right.
trouble.
That's
he
right.
did something wrong. Not my son, your son.
Yeah,
So-
he hands them over to Moses. This
They're
is your
yours,
people.
man. I got nothing
Yeah.
to do with them.
And-
But that's okay, because he said, I'm thinking about wiping them out.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll start over with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's to carry that point a little bit further. After God tells Moses, your people, Moses intercedes and he says, Lord Jehovah, why does your wrath burn against your people? And then he continues to stress the point, those aren't my people, they're your people. So they're kind of fighting over whose people they aren't. And but it is an interesting, and I think that this is purposely recorded in that way. Even though we joke about it because we can relate to this, that comes from a natural sense. When someone does something, when a child does something which embarrasses us, or it's not helpful for the child, or they've hurt themselves, sometimes parents do that.
Right.
Your son, let me tell you what your son did today. Oh, now he's my son. Not that I've ever heard this, but you get the point.
Yeah.
So, but that is natural.
Well, you've heard the expression 2020. I mean, hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, what we're reading was dictated, verbatim at the time. At least our records now that we have. I mean,
I don't know. Some suggest that's part of the question. For instance, Moses's account is in the first person, but he's retrospect. He's looking back on it and recording, that particular event. But,
and that's the copy we have.
yeah.
And I understand that we don't have the originals. We would like to have the tablets.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
We would love that.
No doubt.
So so I'm just saying, looking back, they're playing the blame game as well.
Yeah.
Looking back, trying to,
Yeah.
who knows what their motives are.
Yeah, but as you read it, that's the way it comes
I got
across,
you.
is that you have these two different these
got
different
you.
things. Now the thing about it is, go ahead, Sherry. What were you going?
I have a question, something
All right.
I noticed, and I'm not sure why it's written this way, but, okay, so in Exodus 31 and 32,
Mm-hmm.
when it's the third person account, it said, okay, they are your gods.
Yep.
And Aaron then says, tomorrow's a feast to Jehovah. One is, okay, Elohim, and one is Jehovah. Why, in several of these references, it's either referred to as Elohim or Jehovah. Why is there a difference there? I mean, even somebody said, Vicky said it's not plural in the JPS translation. These are your gods. But why the use of Elohim, sometimes the use of Jehovah another time?
In all the biblical text, even in clean, pure, monotheistic text, referring to the one God, at times God is referred to as your God, Elohim, sometimes as El, variations on El, Eloi, all that, but at times it's direct. And one of the frequent phrases that we get in Scripture is Hu-ha, Yehovah Hu-ha Elohim. Yehovah, He is God, or He is Elohim.
Okay.
So those are going to be interchangeable throughout the text. Now the thing about this text, it's bad enough that Aaron leads them to make a golden calf, and actually that he participates in. That's bad enough. It's bad enough that they then worship that calf and dance, and it's actually bull, I think, is a better. But either way, it's a bovine, Is that the right term?
Yes.
And anyway,
Yes.
so they pray to a cow. They dance, they sing, they do whatever they do. But what makes matters even worse is that Aaron takes this idolatrous thing and says, now look, you guys get some good sleep, because tomorrow we're going to have a festival to Jehovah. Now
Yeah.
he's already said, this is the God that brought you out of Egypt, the cow.
Yeah.
Now he's going to take it a step further and make a festival to this false god, but he's associating the name of God with a false god.
Okay, so, John, Lyndon, maybe, what are your thoughts on the parallel, to me, in my mind, in organized religion, or in my case, Christianity? It looks like the same thing. It's like somebody somewhere along the line of history said, this is God, this person is God, and they use him in place of Jehovah. Now worship him.
Yeah, except I believe in the approach in Christianity.
Uh-huh.
The attempt is one and the same. In other words, I don't know how you get there
It's
from
the
here, but
same one.
the
Well,
same
you're
one,
doing
an
this one,
extension
you're doing
of
that one.
himself
Yeah,
in human form.
Listen,
The only problem with that is that when you go to the scriptures
Uh-huh.
and you hear what the Lord God Almighty, the creator of heaven and earth, says, I am.
Uh-huh.
There is
There's
no other.
None beside
And you will
me.
put none before me.
Yeah.
Now, he's certainly not going to take the exception and say, oh, well, I will. But that's not, he said, I'm a jealous God. You will not put anybody before me or anything.
Yeah.
And so part of, and maybe part of mine was as a history buff of Greek and Roman periods and all that stuff. They're very fond of demigods, where a god mates with a human and creates a demigod. I don't want to go too far on that because we're on the Moses thing, but it goes back to where you had one Roman emperor.
Goes back to Genesis 6.
Well, actually, it for the what we're talking about here on the Christian side of the house,
yeah.
it goes back to Constantine,
Yes.
who's the one that decided, well, I don't like this, we ain't gonna put it in the Bible, and I want this in there, and blah blah blah. So,
Plus,
and 4 months before that, if you were a Christian, they would burn you on a
Yes.
cross or
Beat you to
feed
the
you to
lions.
animals or whatever. And then 4 months after that, because Constantine decided Christians were easier to control, and they say he converted, but he was initially a pagan, and an emperor. And so 4 months after that, when he established Christianity as the religion of the Roman Empire, you would be burned on the cross or fed to the animals if you weren't a Christian. And everybody was good with that. So
So,
plus people want to always have a physical manifestation
Yes.
Something they can understand.
something they could see, touch,
Yeah,
and smell, and look at, and hide, and decorate. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it
They always
seems to
wanna
be
have
a-
that representation.
Yeah, it
Of
seems
what
to be
they
an
have in their mind
ongoing
God
thing
is, so-
with mankind,
But, yeah,
a theme going
One of
on
the-
here.
one
from
of the
this.
main reasons why God said, have no other images, don't do any imaging.
Yeah, and nothing in the sea or the heavens or,
What
Any
was
of
that book? Wait a minute. Okay, go ahead. I'm trying to remember the title of the book that
Miss Librarian here.
that started religion. Oh, what is it? It's a long book that basically starts back at the beginning of man.
The Bible?
And
No.
no, it's much
Oh,
longer
is
than
it?
the Bible.
No.
Much longer than the Bible.
Beginning of religion.
It's the beginning of man and their religion and I'm trying to.
It'll come to you.
It'll come to me anyway, and they start with man worshiping this
Objects.
object
Something,
and over and over and over again, and and how religions go on, and how important it is to have something you can touch, something you can.
and if you can have something
Identify.
more
Was
than
that movie where they
that,
had the Coke bottle?
if you can have something
Okay.
more than that, you get to your point, Dave, is that at some point in time, what if you can make a somebody that walks around that looks like you, because we all make God in our image,
And
in the image we'd like him to be,
Right.
not necessarily that his image, but the image that we'd like him to be. So you turn around and you go, well, you know, this guy's done a lot of great things. Why don't we make Alexander the Great a god? How about Caesar? You know, and they do this
Well, Aaron,
periodically.
you're next in Charlotte.
Yeah,
Won't you
you're
make-
Aaron.
Won't you make us,
And so, you know, maybe, you know, I'm going to play.
Ross over there chomping at the bit.
I know.
Well,
I'm gonna
it's
play the
okay,
devil's
it's okay.
advocate
Well, I
over
wanna-
here.
We
I
can
wanna-
talk now.
We were, you know, when we were at Shiloh.
I just don't want to skip one of these
Yeah,
comments.
yeah.
Yeah, when we were at Shiloh, the ark sat there for
369 years.
369 years, and had been with the people of Israel. God was with them. He wasn't off in some temple someplace. He was there, and he was in various places with the children of Israel. So, all of this time, and it doesn't seem like that their behavior improved very much. And so, at some point in time, the Ark of the Testimony disappears because it doesn't appear that people are following the testimony that he said, this is what you're going to live by. And so the next time it needs to be written on your heart. You don't need to look at a stone or something. You need to know what it is, which is probably one of the reasons why they need to read the scriptures during Sukkot and put it on your
Yeah.
door frame and your fence post and everything, because that's what you need to be doing in life.
Of course, they forget. They don't do that. and
They
that's part of
don't
the
do
problem.
that, and they probably didn't read what was on the stone tablets either. At least the priests and the kings, they should have been telling everybody what's on those stone tablets.
Sylvia brings up a couple of points that it's real important in the lesson to realize that what we have with the making of the calf is that same story plays out again in another great rebellion under King Jeroboam. Remember, he doesn't want the people to go join back up with the house of David after the split where Jeroboam and the northern tribes split off. So they set up two idolatrous places, one in Dan in the north and Bethel, and they're like, here are your gods. The same language is used. So again, it's bad enough that you make an idol. It's bad enough that you worship the idol. It's even worse still to say that idol is Jehovah.
Yeah,
That's
that-
like,
that hit me.
yeah,
It's like,
that's
wow.
bad. It's really bad. I mean, just to have an idol and say this is my God, bad thing. No, don't do it. But to claim that that's Jehovah is even worse. So,
If it hadn't have been for Moses, Aaron would have been toast.
Yep,
yep. According,
literally.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. And he ultimately does die, just like Moses isn't allowed to go into the land either. So
So are we going to get into why it says in, not Numbers, in Hebrews, why it says that the staff and the manna and the, all that?
Just to touch on it, what tends to happen over time is where there's room to add, people add. I mean, people love to fill a void.
You talking about what's in the org?
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What's
Dave.
in there?
Or anything. If you.
Sure.
If we're given in a religious text just a little bit of wiggle room, we go, oh, I know what else was in there, and somebody goes, well, I didn't know anything was in there. Well, yeah. Well, it says like he takes a jar. Moses is told to take a jar of the manna and put it before the testimony, where it's not long until it gets in the box.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's what, and
Yeah.
the
Which
staff
box did
was
you get it?
placed in
Well, that's
front
what it's saying.
of the,
Yeah.
See, I have an opinion that the box Moses made was smaller.
It was
Sort of like a,
Wooden.
probably.
sort of like a tablet cover. You know, this thing has a cover on it.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, when
I'm
he was
thinking
asked to
maybe that
make
box
those
was
tablets, he
put
knew
into
what
the
size
ark
they
box.
were.
Wait
Well-
Wait a minute. He made the tablets, so he knew what size they were. He knew what size
Yeah,
box he
well,
needed to make for them.
Yeah.
And also you gotta think like, well, what's the point of having a box? You didn't have a box the first time, so maybe God's saying, well, maybe he just actually.
You need a
tripped.
case on
Maybe
that.
he
You need a
just-
case
Yeah.
on your phone, or you're
Yeah,
gonna break.
I'm
case
just
you
gonna add.
drop.
I'm gonna add the words.
Just in case you lose your temper again, Moses.
Maybe,
It's like a deterrent.
maybe he didn't actually pull them down and break them, because I mean, I know the text says that's what happened.
He dropped
Maybe he tripped and dropped them. So God said,
Now
This is
we
not
got-
Mel Brooks.
Wait a minute.
This is not Mel Brooks,
Wait a
okay?
minute, it was angry.
So he does.
he got mad and tripped, you know?
He does
You
tell
lose your
him.
temper, you do stuff
He
like
says
that.
he does throw them and break them.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me a message earlier in the week. I've been pretty busy. I'm way behind on correspondence, but I saw a message come through. I hadn't given it the time that I need to, but I'm still working through this material. But anyway, yeah, the thing about Deuteronomy 9 and 10 is it says, only in Deuteronomy do we have an account, first person account, where Moses says, and the Lord told me, make a box of acacia wood, an ark. It's the same word, aron. And that's what you're going to keep these in. Now, what the academic world does is they say, look, this box that Betzalel and Aholiab make, you know, with gold on the inside and out
Big
and
old
poles
thing, big
and
old thing.
you know,
Well,
that
he couldn't
comes
carry
later.
that. He could have carried it.
Yeah, they believe that. The scholars say this was maybe a later idea. I'm just telling you what they think. But what we get in Deuteronomy is a small box that Moses makes,
Made out of wood.
and yeah, and the thing about it is, it's very simple. There are no angels on, no
Yeah.
He can
caravan.
carry it down or up the mountain.
Yeah.
It does say.
You know
For,
what-
for a
Bring the
God
box
that's,
with you.
for
Yeah.
a supreme being that's perfectly happy that his Holy of Holies is in a tent.
Yeah,
You know, this is what I love about studying this in depth. See, until you brought this
I
up
think
in
we're
this
just pondering.
thing,
yeah.
I never realized that Moses didn't write the second
Right.
set.
Everybody
Those
assumes
is
that.
always
Yeah.
taught
Mm-hmm.
that
that,
he,
okay, now because you wrote these, you gotta write.
Yeah.
Well, it's just easier to say. I mean, he did cut the tablets.
Yeah, but he didn't write on them, that Jehovah actually.
But
wrote
look
on them
at,
again.
let's look again at Exodus 32, because people draw that not out of thin air, but the idea that Moses wrote the second tablets, it's derived from a reading of part of the story. Now, you know, growing up as a good Southern Baptist boy back in the day, you know, we were taught you have to take in the whole counsel of God. You start in the beginning, like I still to this day, when I sit down to study, I look at almost every time I've ever prepared a class, if I'm studying, say, the Ark, I go through and look up every verse about the Ark. I want to know, when did we first hear about it? What did it look like? How big was it? What, and then, you know, and I work all the way through, and then I go, well, where is it now? Well, if you do that with this subject, if you start in if all you had was Exodus 32, you wouldn't know what was on the tablets. And you would think that even though God said he was going to write it. At the end of Exodus 32, you get the impression that Moses wrote what was on the tablets.
Mark Lloyd on YouTube
Hey, Mark, shalom.
wanting to say, so is Exodus or Deuteronomy correct?
Hey, Mark.
Or is it both? Or is both correct?
Didn't it go back
That's-
to you and I having that conversation about me coming in and you writing the book?
Yeah, I think what I propose and what I laid out today is they read differently, but if you read it in context, what you get is the one is clearly a third person account. It could be Joshua, it could be anybody. Or in all fairness, it could be Moses writing in the third person. You know, some would propose that. In fact, that's 2 sections of the book that I'm working on go through all this. But
It is handed down through the years.
yeah, over the years, but you do have distinctions, and only one of them claims to be a first person, or one of them is written in the first person.
But to
look-
answer Mark's question though, I think both of them are correct, but you have to read them both. One doesn't give you the same information as the other one.
It's
They
two
do.
creation accounts.
They do.
It's one of them.
Well, it
Okay.
doesn't have what's on the tablets, right?
I understand.
So
No, I'm
that's-
agreeing with you.
oh, okay,
Yeah, I'm
okay,
agreeing
yeah.
with you. But I'm thinking out loud because
Right.
what you get when you read Exodus 32, let me give you an example of reading horizontally. Most people don't like this. And why don't they like it? Because, wait a minute, you're introducing difficulties into the text. These are big boys and girls out here. And
Confusing. We all know where that comes from.
yeah, people get a little nervous and anxious, but all I'm saying is I began within Christianity, and one thing that's very well established in Christian scholarships, if you look at the gospel accounts, right, there is what we call a harmony of the gospels, where they take the synoptics, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and they put them side by side, and you'll recognize immediately that you have similar stories. I remember when I was in like 9th grade, you know, I was like really trying to live my life right, and I had me a little New Testament, pocket New Testament. I carried it with me, and I would read the gospel accounts. And I remember when I read Matthew, and I read it all the way to the bottom, and then I started in Mark. I mean, I grew up in church. I thought I knew the text, but when I started in Mark, I remember thinking, you know, this is a lot of what I just read. I mean, it's almost identical. Well, now I know details. Like, as I recall, there's 660 verses in Mark. Of those 660 verses, Matthew uses 616. So you're going to notice a lot of similarity. Luke uses almost 400. They also are using a source which we no longer have. Obviously, you know, they're in other words, like Matthew and Luke they have some verses that match that Mark doesn't have. So they're clearly drawing from a source. An identical passage in Matthew and Luke indicates that those two writers, you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So when most people who, as they work their way through this kind of material, and they're okay with it maybe, or maybe they're not, they get to the place where they go into the Hebrew Bible and they go, let me start at ground zero again. Genesis, all the way through. Exodus, all the way through. Leviticus, Number. I'm saying throw them beside each other and let's study it. So whenever I start noticing distinctions between the stories, I don't necessarily I don't have to say one is right and the other is wrong. I don't have to say that. I can simply say, let's note the distinctions and understand why one story is one way and one's the other.
Yeah, but this is pretty crucial to understand what which one of these does Jehovah want us to know and follow. It's a
But the
covenant
point
thing.
is-
It's like, how do we know? I
Well-
mean, you're saying that it's okay to just.
Neither one of those tell exactly what's written on there.
No,
As I
no, they
understand
do.
Well,
They do,
uh,
but there are
we-
some differences in Exodus 34.
There,
Yeah.
there is, but that's what I want to look at. So if you look at Exodus 32, let's go there first.
Okay.
And this to kind of help lay it out there. Again, a lot of people want to say, just give me, cut to the chase. I want to know, do I need to throw all this away and only keep I'm not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is that we look carefully, very, very carefully at all the text. So go to Exodus 32, all right? And let me make sure. Actually, it's Exodus 34.
34 is where the
Yeah.
second set.
Exodus 34.
7.
Verse 1. Now, this would align itself very well with Deuteronomy. And the Lord said unto Moses, hew for yourself two. This is why I said your homework is put them side by side. Hew for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first, and I, who's talking? Who's talking?
Jehovah.
Jehovah. And I will write upon these tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. Well, that's exactly, I would say pretty close. I'll go there right now just to have it in front of me. The other passage that we're talking about is Deuteronomy 10, verses 1. So pay attention, Exodus 34:1 again. Lord said to Moses, hew for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first, and I will write upon these tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. All right, go to Deuteronomy 10. At that time, Jehovah said to me, first person, hew for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first, and come up to me into the mountain, and make for yourself an ark of wood. There's a little detail that's different.
Okay.
And I, same language from Exodus 34, will write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. And you're going to put them in the ark. All right? Now, so we get the same story with a detail.
Yeah.
With a detail that Moses is told, you make a box to put them in. It's not in Exodus. All right? In Exodus, the only box we know of from Exodus is one that was made from a guy named Bezalel and his helper named Aholiab, and it's described.
He was a craftsman.
He's a craftsman,
It was
exactly.
an anointed craftsman.
Anointed,
because
that's right.
Jehovah gave them
That's right.
the ability.
That's right.
And where did he get the gold from?
And David, well, that's in the story too. It
Earrings.
accounts for it. Remember when they
I
left?
thought they borrowed.
No, when they left Egypt, they're
Yeah.
given.
Aaron, I thought got them all, pretty much.
No, that's after. That's after. They didn't take the gold to make all this stuff from earrings. They had that given to them from the Egyptians, according to the narrative in Exodus. So what we've got is we got the basic same storyline. It's almost identical with the detail. Moses is going to make a box, and then we get some clarity. He's already said in both of these accounts that what goes on the stones are the same words that I put on the first. Everybody in agreement? That's what goes on it. So there is no discrepancy here. The problem comes in for most people, they take a leap if they only know Exodus. I'm saying, or if they're more familiar, or if that narrative is the one that's stuck in their head. Again, Exodus 34 says, Moses, I'm going to write this. Now look, then we get to verse 5. Jehovah comes down and he reveals himself. Verse 9, Moses says, if I've found favor in your eyes, you come with me. And then look at verse 10. And he said, this is Jehovah, behold, I'll make
Where are you? Deuteronomy?
No, Exodus 34:10. And he, Jehovah, said, behold, I make a covenant before all your people. I'll do marvels such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation, and all the people among whom thou art shall see the work of Jehovah that I will do with you that is tremendous. Observe thou that which I command you this day. And he talks about how he's going to drive out the Emoree, the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, Hivite, Jebusite. Don't make a covenant, verse 12, with the inhabitants of the land. Verse 13, destroy their altars, break down their
So
images.
we're getting into commandments here?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, so this is my point. And I don't want to read it all, but I'm just
Yeah.
hitting the highlights.
yeah.
Cut down their Asherim, for you shall worship no other God, for Jehovah your God, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God, and unless you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, go after their gods, and your sons and daughters intermarry and play the harlot. Verse 17, you shall make no molten gods. Then verse 18, the feast,
Specifically.
yeah, don't do it.
Specifically.
Yo, you just broke the, remember that?
Don't do it again.
And
The
don't do it again.
feast of unleavened bread you shall keep, and then it gets into some festivals. Then when you get to verse 19, all that open the womb is mine, every firstling among the cattle. Then it gets in verse 20 to the firstborn of your sons. Now look at verse 21. I know I'm going fast, but stick with me. 6 days you shall work, but on the seventh you shall rest in plowing and in harvest. Verse 22, observe the feast of weeks. 3 times in a year, verse 23, all your males will appear before. You shall, verse 25, you shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven. And then 26 ends, you shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk. Now listen to the next line. And Jehovah said to Moses, write thou these words. Next line. For after the tenor of these words, I've made a covenant with you and with Israel.
Okay, so, time out. That phrase, for after the tenor of these words,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean? Does that mean
Let me look at it exactly.
this is kind of like the covenant I'm at, this is in the same vein?
Let's
Because in
see,
these
Exodus.
commandments, there's no mention of stealing, murdering,
Yep.
honoring
These are
parents.
special instructions.
Yeah, so after the tenor
I did 'em.
of these words, I have made a covenant with thee and with Israel. So that little phrase right there says,
Okay, listen to
isn't the
this.
same.
In the Hebrew, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Katav lecha et hadevarim ha'ele. And he said, Jehovah said to Moses, write for yourself these words, Ki al pi hadevarim, because according to the mouth of these words, the mouth of, P, which generally is translated according to, because upon the mouth or the command of these words, I'm going to make a covenant with you. A covenant with you, and a covenant, it says, I will cut with you a covenant and with Israel, according to these words. Now, here's the thing. We find that everything listed in Exodus 34 is part of the greater covenantal language found in the Torah. Like, and a lot of this is a repetition of what is going to be written on the commandments, right? That's a fact. Don't have any other gods, don't sacrifice,
No
and so forth.
images,
No
yeah.
images, yeah. So, but Moses can fulfill this. He doesn't say, write these words on the tablets, right? In other words, he's up there for 40 days. We touched on this last week. Here's what we know. Moses, cut 2 tablets and bring them with you up here. And I, Jehovah, am going to write on the tablets the same words I wrote on the first tablets. What do we know about those? Deuteronomy chapter 4, 12, and 13. They're the words that were spoken audibly by Jehovah from the mountain, in the fire, on the day of assembly. That's what's getting written on the tablets. He conveys to him other rules and laws that are important and says, Moses, write these words. Forget the tablets. Moses he'd say, not on the tablets, Moses. I'm writing on the tablets. You write these words. I'm being demonstrative. Moses, don't you write on the tablets. You just take those.
okay,
and put them in the
but
book.
look at verse 28.
Mhm.
Because there it says, and
What
he
chapter
wrote
is it?
upon the same Exodus 34. And he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights, and
Mm-hmm.
you did either eat bread or drink water, and he wrote upon the tables the word of the covenant
Mm-hmm.
and the Ten Commandments.
Yeah. Again,
See, that's
it can be confusing,
Yeah.
but context is everything. Believe me.
Yeah, yeah.
You are on to the problem.
Yeah,
You are reading what others have read for a long time and said, wait a minute, who wrote on the and what's written? The scholars say this is another version of another set of commandments that Moses wrote. All right? That's what they
The
say.
laws of Moses.
What I'm providing you with is a way to understand
through the,
through looking at the horizontal
Horizontally.
approach. We know that God wrote on the tablets. We have every other source says that. But you're right to go, well, I don't know. If you read verse 28, that's where the rub comes in.
So, since you brought it up,
Yeah.
okay.
I would like to point out that in my humble opinion, that not boiling in a mother's milk does not constitute you can't put cheese on a sandwich with meat.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a big debate too. Of course, the Orthodox take
Yeah,
that
I
commandment,
know.
which comes, several times in the text of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Torah.
I'm just but what it read you just
And I've
cheese is
heard
made over here, meat's made over here. And after all, when God came to see Abraham, they did have a lamb and cheese
He
sandwich.
loves that.
I know he
Brings
does.
that up like
I know,
every
I know.
week, doesn't
It's
he?
important.
At the same
likes
time-
cheeseburgers.
That's
He
it.
likes cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
And he's trying
Look
to
at the
justify
verse.
his.
It's talking
Say
about
it.
bring
Don't
the
say
first
that.
fruits.
Yeah.
Okay, the first fruits of
Right.
of a sheep would be the lamb,
Mhm.
and then he's concerned that they're going to take that baby lamb and take that mother's milk
Yeah.
while they're offering it up, and so I think it's just like an additional note to that commandment. It's like
Basically
you
says
bring
don't
the
boil
first
it,
fruit,
don't
Addendum.
boil it in
But
the mother's
don't.
milk.
you
Don't
know.
boil it in the
Yeah.
mother's milk is what it
Right.
says.
I
'Cause that was
noticed another
probably a
detail
thing
that
they
All right.
did.
it's, he's speaking to Moses. I'm making a covenant with two. I'm making one with you and the Israelites. He doesn't put them together in the same house.
Well, excellent way to bring it up. I do think that he means, this is my understanding, could be wrong, because he does list them separate. He could have said, in your view, he could have said, I'm making a covenant with all of y'all. But a lot of times, he will break it down. So I've always read it this way to say, I'm making a covenant with you and with the children of Israel. One covenant. Generally, I think it would say, I'm making a covenant with you and a covenant with Israel. What he says here in the verse, I am cutting, cut for yourself the words, because according to these words, I am cutting with you a covenant and with Israel. So it's one covenant.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
But
Yeah.
Moses
But
has a
two different-
special place with
But
it.
they are broken apart. And the you is singular in the Hebrew. He doesn't say I'm making covenant with y'all and with Israel. So Moses is there alone, and he tells him that these words after these words. So there are within these texts, there are some things which are difficult. There are some things that make us go, wait a minute.
What you ponder on.
And it's why that there is a compendium of knowledge that's written and recorded in like the Talmud, the Mishnah, the Gemara, where people take and they ad nauseum, they break it down and they look at the details and why does it say it here and not here, and because we inquiring minds want to know. Inquiring minds want to know.
Well,
Speaking of
who was-
inquiring minds, I wanted to answer Dave's question.
All right?
Where'd they get to go? The one thing that, and it's not in the scripture
Oh,
here.
here we go.
No, it was from the movie we saw.
Oh, okay.
You know the
The
movie.
You know the
Patterns of
movie.
Evidence. The Patterns of
so
Evidence. We're talking
okay.
about Exodus. And they went to the archive in England. I think it was England. They had the writings from the scribe in Egypt where he wrote down how the plagues took place and all of that. And how God had smote, the God of Israel had smote the Egyptians. And when they left, when they released them and they left, the people were so beaten down that they gave, when the Israelite slaves said, give me your jewelry, they just gave it to them.
So, just to give you the reference, because we brought that up a few times, Exodus 12:36. Back it up to 34. Nope, 35. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they asked of Egypt jewels of silver, jewels of gold, and garments. And the Lord, Jehovah, gave the people favor in the sight of Egypt, so that they gave them such things as they required.
My point was that.
I didn't read that, that's good.
Aaron got all the gold and made a calf out of it. So where'd they get one?
No, I don't think he got all of
No,
it.
no, hang on.
That's it.
No, but to answer that, what we get is in the story of Exodus 32, where Aaron says, "All right, you guys want something gold? I need your earrings."
Right.
All right, so
The rings and all.
yeah, so this is a separate cache of jewels, and money and gold and everything, which has already been used. So, like in Exodus, prior to the making of the calf, they've already, according to the text, they've already made all the other stuff, including the ark and
Oh, really?
yeah, that's all
Yeah, I
that
thought
stuff's
the ark
already
came
happened.
later, I thought.
That's all. It's mentioned later again, but
I mean,
you're
as far
right.
as making it, making.
Exodus
the
25.
golden one.
Exodus 25 talks about the making of the ark.
Right.
And to your point, it mentions it again in 37 and in chapter 40. So it's sort of like a recap, like, yeah, Bezalel made the box and he put the angels on it. So again, look, we're looking at a lot of different material here. The thing that is so interesting to me is to work through and sort it, because not everything is in order. I pointed out last week that Exodus 16, it's not in order. How do we know that? It doesn't fit. I mean, it's clearly not in the right. And rabbis admit this. There are things that are recorded not necessarily chronologically. Doesn't make it untrue, doesn't make it a problem. It just makes it,
It was a woman telling the story.
like, got distracted.
I said it.
I'm glad I didn't
said
say
it.
that.
No, you can't.
Wait,
You can't say that, but I
let's see.
can.
You got 4 women, 3 guys?
I didn't, not me.
Aw.
But I said it. This is how I tell a
Speak
story.
no evil, hear no
Okay,
evil, see no
I'll throw
evil.
something on that. Richard Elliott Friedman proposes a woman's hand on certain things, so it's fun to check into. I'm sorry,
So-
Dave.
No.
Now,
Okay.
the book I finally found it. It's James Michener's The Source,
Ah.
and he
Oh,
starts at the very
okay.
beginning and works it. An incredibly long,
I have it.
Mr.
Long.
Oh,
long.
Isn't he
but-
known for his long books?
Yes, he is. If you want to read Texas or
Yeah,
Hawaii
Texas,
or
yeah.
any of
I've
the,
read
yeah.
Texas.
But The Source starts at the beginning of human kind and
Wow.
goes on and does the whole thing. So you asked last week, you said something about how many commandments were there or how many statements were there made, and I counted out 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it was kind of hard saying which of these counted.
Yes. And
were the 10.
of course, I was reading a thing on the Ten Commandments, and it says most monuments, it's talking about the monuments that they're making everybody take out of their courthouses and stuff like that. Most of the monuments list the Ten Commandments. They're preceded by Roman numerals. Very inaccurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. And he says also there are 13. He can pull out 13 statements.
In fairness,
So.
I'm willing to bet that it's Roman letters that they're using to describe the 10 words with the Roman numerals.
Well, on the
Because our
plaques
language
that
is
you
based on
see
Roman
well,
letters.
that you see at the courthouses
in
and
Greek.
things. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And of course, it also says that they're not
Well,
right
and then
because
too,
they're
when
all.
you're engraving, on those stones, modern day, the Roman numerals are much easier to, take that chisel than
Then-
rounded.
Okay.
Sorry,
No,
sorry.
that's okay. I just, I didn't mean to jump in. I just saw Stacy's comment.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that.
All the gold from Egypt was used on the ark before the giving of the 10 words. I thought Moses built the box of shittim wood. I think I missed something. Okay. All right. So what we have, we appear to have two boxes. Okay. We have a box that is made by Betzalel with his assistant Aholiab. And it's found in Exodus 25, it's mentioned in Exodus 37,
That's the
it's
ark.
mentioned in
That's-
Exodus 40. It is the ark as we know it, the pretty box,
Right. It had
that's
handles and all.
handles, the poles,
Pretty
inside and outside with gold, a
Pretty
lid
big.
covered in gold. It's also got two angels, cherubim, not angels,
Elaborate.
cherubim.
It's elaborate.
It's fancy, it's elaborate.
It's a Saturday go to
Heavy.
meeting box.
Yeah, it's a
Probably pretty
Saturday
big.
go to meeting box.
And it's not the same one that Moses makes.
Is it?
Well, it's now, here's the way
Is
I'll
it?
answer this. In Deuteronomy 10, God tells Moses, come up here, verses 1 through 5, bring the 2 stone tablets that you hewed out. Bring those with you. Oh, Moses,
Make a box.
make a box of shittim wood. So Moses
We don't wanna
says,
break the next stone.
Moses says, I made a box of shittim wood like, he doesn't, Deuteronomy does not say anything about the making of the other box.
Now, I understand, I'm just gonna throw this out there, one was Shittim wood.
Shittim,
And
yeah.
the other one.
They're both, well, it's the
Acacia.
same. I'm
Acacia.
sorry.
Yeah, I hadn't
Acacia is
checked out.
Hebrews the
right?
same. Good question.
Okay.
Good
So
question.
it's the same kind of wood.
Same wood.
Okay, I just wanna make.
In fact, in the desert, there's not a lot of choices. It's not
That's
like we
right.
go, make it out of poplar,
That's right.
make it out
Gotta go
of, what would you like me to make this out
And
of? How about
Muhammad-
this is all I
and
got?
Muhammad said that's the
Mahogany.
best firewood too.
I mean, hey, yeah, our friend Muhammad over there.
That's right.
He wanted, he needed firewood, and had a giant pile of wood.
This is a good story.
scraps, and Some of it was good for firewood, some of it was not. I had to go get him, I mean, I'm pretty good with wood,
Yeah,
but I had to go get him to tell me, cause I don't find those kinds of woods over here in Louisiana. To tell me
Excellent
which
example.
ones were right or which ones were not right.
excellent example.
Yeah.
Dave became the go-to guy. Muhammad would come across in the evenings. His back was bothering him.
Yeah.
So Dave would go out when we stayed together in a long time in the desert. He's a Bedouin, so he lives in a tent, and he's got, one of his kids has asthma. And so he needed Dave to help him find, not that. This right here, this is good. And so Dave learned what kind of wood, because some woods emit smoke, and you're in a tent.
Yeah.
They don't have electricity. So, but that's an excellent example. There's not a lot to choose from, but there are some kinds that were better for certain things.
Tough wood, I know, but.
Yeah. So what we have again is in Exodus 25, you have this elaborate description of a box, and it's pretty detailed. By the way, the ark,
Exodus 25.
yeah, Exodus
is the
25,
Fancy box.
let's call it the fancy box.
Does it have the plain box inside of it?
We might assume.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
See, I like that idea because to
Box
me,
in a box.
symbolically, it speaks volumes to
Yeah,
me.
I like it.
About searching for the box within the box of
Yeah.
scripture.
Well, that's
Like there might be this fancy box around that man has made around.
How many of you
The
have
real
read Tabor's
pure-
article on the box within the
Got it
box?
right
Oh,
Do you
no,
have
I
it pulled up?
haven't.
I did.
I
did.
have.
Can you
haven't.
put that link
Oh my gosh.
on there?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta read that.
So what Tabor proposed, he's the one that pointed this out to me. You know how you read the Bible and you think you know it, and then one of your friends goes, "Hey, you ever notice this?" You're like, "No." So Deuteronomy 10, Tabor wrote an article. What's it called, Dave? The ark, the other ark.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the
gotta
idea
find it.
could be that Moses takes the little box he made,
The other Ark of the Covenant.
the other Ark of the Covenant.
Prince
I like
of
that,
other.
yeah. Takes the 10 words, the covenant, the tablets, the testimony, the Adut as it's called, puts it in the little box that Moses made, right? It's a little box. He
The
takes
tablet cover.
that box
Yeah.
and puts that box in the other
The
box.
gold
Now,
box.
all we know is that the testimony goes inside the ark.
Doesn't say how.
Yeah, so it could be in another box that Moses made. You know, it could be to protect them. It doesn't go into detail, but you've already broken one set. You know, you did
Yeah.
it intentionally, but
Right.
so we
Well,
have
he's
both
getting
of
on
these
in
accounts.
years. You know, you might trip
Oh,
on the
thank
way
you, Dave.
down, like Dave said, and break the next set. So
Yeah.
make a protector box.
So the
Covenant.
one of
A
the
tablet
great
cover.
one of the great
Out of wood.
one of the great questions of biblical scholarship is chronology.
Right, right.
When you read these accounts, if you believe that everything is chronological, we know that the creation of man is early in the story, right? So we get that. That's a giver. But as you work through, some of the events may not record everything in a chronological sequence. So Stacy is saying, you know, something I'm trying to figure out. I thought this happened first. The beauty of looking at things horizontally is you can begin to get that order correct. Now, I know some of you are more, like me, are more Hebraically oriented and not concerned with the New Testament. But let me use something you're more familiar with. When scholars really began to study the Gospels, what they began to notice is that in one account, an event took place. The same event is recorded in another gospel, but it's in a different place, right? They only noticed that because they looked at the text side by side. Then they began, and this isn't a direct order of how they figured things out, but they began to notice certain patterns. When Mark is in a hurry to communicate the story. He says, and suddenly Jesus went to the other side, and suddenly he went to the house, and suddenly, you know, it's like, he's like, because he's brief, he's just, and this is not my field, I'm talking out of school, but I know it a little bit. So every time Matthew tells a story, generally, Matthew will a lot of times say, and this was written to fulfill the word of the Lord in whatever, and here's what it says in the prophet. Mark doesn't generally do that. Luke has another approach. So you begin to recognize different writers, right? You're recognizing the pen of different people. The scholarly world in the Hebrew Bible does the same thing.
Sure.
They look at the Hebrew Bible and they go, I'm noticing some things here. It's interesting that Exodus always, fill in the blank. Leviticus always, you know, it's not really broken down by books and scholarly in the Hebrew Bible. But, so
Different authors.
I'm not going there. What I prefer to do is stick with the text because I'm not teaching a graduate level course, nor have I taken a graduate level course. I'm simply saying, let's look at the text. We know God writes on 2 tablets of stone. Tablets of stone are put in the ark which is made for it. That then becomes the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant travels with Israel throughout their history. It's put into the first temple. Something happens, it goes missing. It's found, it's put back in, it goes missing again, and it's missing to this day. How many of you have ever heard of the Urim and the Thummim?
I often wonder what the heck is that?
Where's that at?
I know.
That's a pretty big point.
QT.
I mean, it's something that was used, right? You got it with you?
Sounded pretty
Right in your
powerful to
pocket.
me, like a
You
tool
say
that
goes
God would
missing
use.
and then was found. I'd be willing to bet that it was never the first time. It was not missing. It was placed somewhere intentionally.
I'm with you, brother.
And then the second time, it was just like with the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was placed somewhere intentionally, and then the person that placed it there, or people that placed it there, died without being able to pass that information on.
Or maybe we do have a hint at it, but your point is valid. So let's look at one passage. I want you to go with me to Deuteronomy 31.
Okay, and then I want to bring up the question that Vicky had.
Vicky asked too hard a question.
Now,
Leave
boy,
hers
this is
out.
easy. Real simple.
Vicky,
I'm gonna give it one or two.
Go for it, Vicky.
It's outside the scope of our
Go
course.
for it.
okay, go to Deuteronomy 31. Again, I am so into this right now. I'm writing all this down. I'm doing a study and writing my book, and so
I never knew.
Huh?
I never knew.
Okay.
31?
So first, let's go to 22. No, 31 verse 9. I think is the first one that I want to do. Moses wrote this Torah and delivered it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who bore the ark of the covenant of Jehovah, and to all the elders of Israel. Now, let me explain something here. In biblical language, that refers to a special group. Now, this is more than what you bargained for, but you have Levi has 3 sons. All right? Gershom, Merari, and Kohath. Kohath is the family who bears the Ark of the Covenant. The Levites, and I'm just thinking, don't go that. The Levites are the family descended from Levi, but Aaron and his sons and Moses are descended from Kohath. So when he says, Levites, you might have 50,000 raise your hand. You go, oh, not all of y'all. I need the Kohathites. Oh, you guys. You're from Kohath? Okay. Here's what I want you to do. You're the ones that bear the ark. So you other guys, y'all have other stuff to carry when we move the tabernacle. But you, Kohath, you're the ones who bury a specific group, the Aaronites, or the Kohathites. So he finishes, Moses finishes writing the Torah, hands it to the Levites who bear the ark, right? A specific group. Everybody follow me so
Yeah.
far?
They're like a subgroup.
They are a subgroup. It's like saying we're all Americans at this table, but, you know,
Some of us are Louisiana.
yeah, that's right. You got it. Okay, now look at verse
Normally, tell you what.
verse
Different.
26.
Right.
Ready? 25. 24. All right. And it came to pass when Moses had made an end of writing the words of the Torah in a scroll. The words of the Torah in a scroll. He finished writing the end of the Torah. Until they were finished, Moses commanded the Levites who bore the Ark of the Covenant, not you Merarites, not you Gershomites, Kohathites, saying, take this book of the Torah and put it mitzad, in the side of, or by the side of, the Ark of the Covenant of Jehovah your God, that it may be there for a witness against you. So this was one of the first clues that made me say, you got to write a book. You can't just, you got to put this in writing. So this is what I'm doing. So he tells him, take this. Here, he's too far. You're the Kohathite. I finished writing the Torah. I'm Moses for this. I look, you know, all right. Here, you're the ones who bear the ark. I want you to take this and put it beside the Ark of the Covenant and keep it there for a witness, right?
Okay.
Now, as far as we know, you must grow. As far as we know in the Bible, that's where it's supposed to be. If that ark goes to Mississippi, this goes with it. Now, John and I have had some fun talks. Was there a side pocket, like a little pouch or something?
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't
It's
know.
not
Little strip of
discussed.
Velcro.
What
Could
we
be.
do have,
Maybe not.
a cable tie, we do have the message in 1 Kings 8:9 and 2 Chronicles 5:10 that, that only thing in the box, is the 10 words.
In the order.
In the ark, exactly. That's all it's in. This is by it, beside it, and maybe a
Saddlebags, who
side
knows?
pocket,
Maybe in
saddlebag.
another box.
Could be.
And the purpose of it, to be a testimony
Yeah.
As a witness
Against them.
against you.
against
Yeah.
you.
Right.
So if you mess up,
But Moses already said, I know you people.
yeah, that's what he says next. Yeah.
All right.
I know you're.
He told guys, he says, I know these people. Don't send them in there by themselves. They need a leader.
Let's see.
Okay, so
This
Vicky.
guy goes,
No.
okay, send Joshua
Wait,
up here.
I'm not finished.
yet.
No,
Oh,
can you
okay.
hold it? Will you forget it?
Yes, no, I won't.
Okay.
For Vicky's sake,
Yes,
I
no.
won't.
Real quick. What happens then is that this
It's
goes
confusing me.
evidently all along and it gets lost. This gets lost. This was my theory at first.
Yeah.
This is what I thought. It gets lost. Don't know where it's at. You still have the ark, but the scroll that Moses wrote. So 2 Kings 22 verse 8. Well, 2 Kings 22, Josiah's 8 years old. He takes over as the king. They protect him until he gets to a certain age.
Oh wow!
All right?
This is the scroll.
Yes.
He finds.
Yes. He said, that's what it says.
Wow.
It says, I found the scroll. Okay, so here's the theory. This was my theory at first. It's like when, is this hooked to me? I don't want to get up and dance, but when he goes in, Hilkiah the high priest goes in, they're cleaning up the temple, and he's looking around. Rabbinic tradition says that he finds it between two stones. But anyway, he finds a scroll. He's like, Shaphan, you be Shaphan. Shaphan, I found the scroll that
So
Moses
this
wrote.
says this, the same scroll.
Yep.
The same.
I found the scroll that Moses wrote.
Wow.
And he gives it to him. Take that. And then Shaphan takes it to the king, to Josiah. Josiah reads the scroll, and then he's like, "Oh, I got to change everything." So he sets up a reform in all the land of Israel, and if you read what they did, it only matches Deuteronomy. Everything about the Reformation matches Deuteronomy. The text is very specific. The actions of the king match Deuteronomy. So then I looked at every reference and I start seeing all this stuff. Whenever the Torah of Moses is mentioned, the scroll of Moses, any of that, it's clearly indicating Deuteronomy. So I think I've got a great subject for a book. So I start typing and I'm thinking about this and I'm dreaming about it. I'm waking up in the middle of the night going, give me my Bible, and I'd look and I'm taking notes and I bring stacks of notes here. And then it hit me. Nobody mentioned the ark. Where's the ark? I mean, I think the ark is there. Maybe it's there and they don't mention it. Like Josiah and all them, they know the ark's in there. It's not a big deal. But this is a big deal. You found the missing scroll. But the problem is the ark isn't there. Because if you go to 2 Chronicles 35, at the Passover, same year of the discovery, he says, hey, take the ark and put it in the temple. Who's he talking to? He's talking to the Levites who carry the ark. So to your point, John, the Levites who carry the ark must have had it in their possession.
Knew where it was.
And maybe because you had at least 57 years of bad kings back, all this bad time, they didn't trust these dirty
It's someplace
scoundrels.
where it was
Yeah.
safe.
They had it in safekeeping, but now that they see Josiah's the rightful king, they go, hey, look, this is not in the Bible. This is me thinking the way it could have happened. Levites go, hey, Josiah, we want to let you know, now that we see that God's on your side and this reform is going on, we have the ark. And he's like, oh, this is so great. Such great news. Thank you guys. You guys are wonderful.
Put it in the temple.
We're going to put it in. We're going to do a celebration, Passover. We're going to invite all the people. And during that, I'm going to make a big announcement. You're going to love it. This is going to be great. CNN's going to be there, Fox, everybody. Everybody but Jim Acosta. We're not letting him in. But we're going to take the ark. We're going to take the ark and we're going to put it in the... All right, so... And then it goes missing again. The greatest object. Now, Vicky had a question.
Where was Moses in Exodus 25?
Where was he?
Yeah, where was he? Because this is the elaborate ark.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Where was he?
I mean, in reference
Somewhere near
Mm.
Sinai.
when he tells him to make the ark,
Well,
bring it up, or put the.
well, if you look at
tablets
Exodus
in.
25, only going by the text, if you start in verse 1, and the Lord said unto Moses. All right. So it's a in context 25, which in verse 10 begins talking about the making of the ark. This is all set in the context of the Lord spoken to Moses. So verses 1 through 9 are about certain offerings to build. In other words, we need people to give all that stuff the Egyptians gave you. Bring it forward. Remember, and they give so much that ultimately Moses has to tell them, that's enough. You guys have donated
Right, I
enough.
remember
Stop.
that.
Right? All right. But then they're going to make me, verse 8, and let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them according to all that I show you the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all its vessels, even so you shall make it. And then he begins to break that down. Notice the first thing he says. And they shall make an ark of shittim wood, right? And he describes it. 2 cubits and a half its length, 1 cubit and a half its breadth, 1 cubit and a half its height, and you shall overlay it with pure gold, inside and outside you shall overlay it, and it goes on to describe it. Now, if you go forward to, let me see, because I have the reference right here. If you go forward to Exodus 37, this is just the instruction, do this.
Yeah,
Now look at Exodus 37. Now remember, this is after Exodus 37 is recorded in chronological order, after Moses has already broke the tablets, got
Yeah.
another set. Now notice 37, beginning in verse 1. And Betzalel made the ark of shittim wood. 2 cubits and a half was its length, 1 cubit and a half its breadth, 1 cubit and a half its height, and overlaid it with pure gold. And so he's
doing
doing it. Now, the chronology, I don't know.
Well, I'm going back to something you said. It was a long time between Moses and the passage in the Bible where they found
the scroll.
the scroll that Moses wrote, right?
I'm sorry, say it.
In other words, Moses' death,
Time.
right?
Yeah.
There was a substantial period of time until they found the scroll in the temple, right? Long time.
Yep.
So we have the scroll, and so I'm like old. Here you go. Let me see. I'm like
Pass the
old, and I'm going. You're my firstborn son. It's your job to take this. No, you're taking it. So anyway, you take this, right? And you get old, and you go, you're my firstborn son, you take this. Some point in time, somebody goes, my son isn't old enough. I'm gonna put this in a safe keeping here. When he is of age, give that to my son. You see what I'm saying? So everybody's like, you got it, you're the chief carrier of the scroll of Moses, we're not touching it. When your son's old enough, it'll be presented. So I found, this. I'm just thinking outside the box here.
No, this is your
This is just
hypothesis, yeah.
totally hypothetical. Because
You're
when you look
just
at,
making stuff up.
yeah, when you
Well,
look
sounds
at Jewish tradition,
John's gonna make a movie.
when you look at Jewish traditions, it's not outside the realm of possibility. You know, you got young sons and an old father, and sons get killed, and you got one old son left, and he's 6 years old. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying,
There are,
it's hard to lose scrolls.
they did lose it.
I understand.
Yeah.
but
And stuff going
But-
on, too.
but-
yeah, there's a
so-
lot of trouble.
But just let me clarify, and it's not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is what you're saying. There is a family, a specific group of people who are told, Moses passed this down. Look, take this scroll and put it, whatever that means, mitzad Aaron. Put it from the side of the
Don't
ark or
give
by
to
it
me
or
because
whatever.
I slandered
And keep up
women.
with this. This is your job.
Right.
So the scroll is found in the temple. We know that. That according to 2 Kings 22 and 2 Chronicles 34. Those accounts, looking at them side by side, is interesting what they say and what they don't say. I mean, look, I started asking myself, is anybody out there, have they made a harmony of the Torah accounts or a harmony of the biblical accounts in the Old Testament? They haven't,
Come on.
except that I've found, except Kings and Chronicles, those two I've got. I'm looking for one on the Torah. Let's put Vicky on this. Vicky, find us the between all your busy schedule. No, but I would like to see, are these accounts in the Torah, like when Exodus and Deuteronomy describe the making of the 10 Commandments or whatever? I want to look at them side by side. Now, I'm doing that pen and paper now. Maybe one day I'll write that next, but
And who knows, maybe they had a
Try Google.
scroll room.
yeah, I'll Google.
Maybe they had a scroll room with racks where all the scrolls run, and it just got overlooked. Anybody went, what's this one? Oh my goodness!
So there are two accounts in Jewish literature about where the scroll was, but anyway, I'm not going to give all that away.
Well, the other thing too is the keepers, right?
Yeah,
When you had the 57 years, maybe they had a special hiding place where they took the Ark of the Covenant and said, it needs to be here. We were charged with keeping this safe, and this is a safe place, and we put it here.
Let's
So,
put it in the vault in the basement. Nobody knows.
or
it.
a
How many
special
of you
cave, who
knew-
knows?
How many of you knew that the tent was actually in the temple? A lot of people miss that
No, I
too.
didn't notice that.
So there's a lot
Yeah,
going
was
on.
it stored in there or was it actually put up?
Well,
That's what I'm trying
Also
to
referred
figure.
to as holy, holy, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
the 10.
Well, everybody knows what not everybody, but the temple proper, the dimensions of the temple proper. If there was some kind of building or structure underneath the temple, like say a storage facility, who knows?
Big rock or something.
Well, no, I'm talking about like a storage
There
room
were
or something, a
caves. We
basement.
saw
a
caves
basement.
all over
Yeah.
there.
There were caves all over the place too, so.
Now, one other thing that the questions are pretty good. Look, first of all, what I'm doing and the reason I'm teaching as I'm teaching now or sharing as I'm sharing now is I want people to think.
Yes,
It's
and you're
not a
making
matter
us-
of
yeah.
introducing doubt. That's not my
No,
concern.
no.
Look, I'm a Bible believing person. I just want to know, like I really want to figure some things out. Now, what I'd like you to do is, and I'm just giving you things that are fun to do. Some of you are like, I don't have time to do another thing. But if you do and you want something fun, look at these accounts. Someone, I think Stacy asked, so Moses had two 40-day experiences on the Mount. Look, look at how many times Moses goes up and down the Mount. Now, if your view is that Sinai is like Mount Everest, that kind of height, and this
Wow.
80-year-old's humping up and down, or 120-year-old.
Carrying stones.
Yeah.
in a
Now,
box,
Look, I've looked at all the proposed Sinai sites, and I'm thinking about the text. Does it match? Could you, let's say Moses is a stud, like that's the language like super in great shape.
An athlete.
and you go 40 days without water. That's
And we saw it at Har Karku.
We did.
Right? We saw the path
He
and
was-
how you could
he
do
had
it.
to.
Yeah, there
I'd have
there
to
are
provide
some
for
of the. I'm sorry, Pam. Do what?
I'm sorry.
No, no, I
have-
No,
we
no,
have a
he was
sidebar
saying-
with you.
no, but
Well, if he wasn't taking water and bread, Jehovah had to provide for him somehow
yeah.
because he's human.
Well, and he says he went 40 days without food or water, but how many times does he go up and down? That's a good question. Like, and it's one of those things that helps you to sort this out. Now, one thing people don't notice, again, this is what the rabbis have done for thousands of years. I'm not doing anything that they haven't done. They've looked at these texts and they want to know what they're talking about. So here's an example. Go to Deuteronomy 10. Wait a minute.
Those rabbis didn't have internet though.
That's right.
That's right.
And if it's on the internet, it's
And they
true.
didn't have movies.
That's right, that's right.
But they were great storytellers.
Yeah, they did have live action.
So, no, I'm not going to do that one right now. I was going to bring something else in, but I think we've gotten in enough right now. But if you think about it, the idea that I wanted to convey today is that which was recorded on the second set in all our sources, as I propose, if understood correctly, I believe, it's the same words on the second one that were on the
Right.
first. And both
Written on the
sets,
same hand.
exactly, that's the key.
Yeah.
Both are written by the finger of God.
Right.
The first set and the second set,
They're both original copies.
they're,
No, they're
yeah,
both original documents, they're not copies.
right,
Okay.
that's right. The second set contains the same words by the same author, same words on the tablets that were on the first one or on the second one.
Take
As far as
two.
we know, one of them smashed it on the ground to this day.
Yeah.
As far as we know.
Now the rabbis, there's one theory in rabbinic
How much I threw them
literature.
together.
Yeah, there's one theory in rabbinic literature that set that was broken was put in the ark too.
I got you.
You
Yeah, 'cause
know,
they
it
don't wanna
doesn't
destroy
say
it.
that
They don't wanna
specifically,
destroy
but
it, get rid of it.
maybe.
Why would you?
I don't know.
Well, here's the point to me.
What?
They don't want to destroy the.
Too late,
Both-
Moses already destroyed it.
Both
the
of
name-
those
the name
accounts
was on there or something. They didn't
are worthy of
want. They don't
following.
want
Oh
to
yeah.
discard it.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Still
It's not
supposition, 'cause
like-
it doesn't really say.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we want to know
Well, immediately
The-
after that, there
what
was a
was
lot of
written
blood
by the
being
finger
let.
of God, but the source is God.
Yeah.
The source is Jehovah. So
What I'm saying is, with confidence,
Mm-hmm.
we can know from the biblical view
Okay.
what was written on it.
Yeah.
Okay, we know what Moses is very specific in Deuteronomy as to what went on them, and it's clearly the covenant. Those words which were spoken from the fire, from the mount, in the day of assembly. We have that. That's next week. We're getting into that.
Okay.
And so, but we know what those words were. But the fact that the copy, like right now, you can't go to the museum, the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, and see them. Yet. You can't yet until I go find them.
Good luck with that.
Well,
Well, you got to go to Jordan.
I'm gonna show you a text that says that at the right time they're gonna be found. Why not?
Call me.
Yeah.
But to capitalize on your point, the important part is what was written on the tablets. There's a lot of interesting stuff in the scriptures that makes for good, interesting conversation and is fun to try and figure out what may or may not have happened. A lot of subjecture there. But the important part is, and I think, once they found the scroll, Josiah's probably like, okay, all you scribes, get in here. We need to Xerox this thing, and go to work.
Clearly, and I am so excited to share what I'm putting together, because there are things that I notice when I really, over the past, since May 11th, I've been working on this nonstop, and there are some things that I've seen that I've not noticed before. And so, to me, it's driving me to get it done so I can say, here's the proposal that I have. Read it, look at it, but it only comes into focus. This is my approach, and many of you have the same approach when you study Scripture. I know you do, because you really want to get at the source. So things become obvious when we really measure it against, like, details come into focus. Like, I can look at this, I can't see, I can make out, I can make it out. I know that there are words here, but I really can't read them until I really look at them with my glasses on. What I'm trying to do is to share with people some things which help us bring into focus what it's saying. I don't have any special gifts any more than anybody does. It's just careful attention to detail. That's what we have to do.
With
that's
the
it.
purpose, the overall purpose is to know Jehovah and his ways so we can walk in them.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. Absolutely. The whole point of all of this is to take it and live it.
Yes.
Vicki told me you got 40 days, Ross.
No water.
No,
You
I
know
got
what
water,
the
no
wrong
food.
No water, no food, get
Boys
writing.
do.
So we're going. By the way, we're going. Yeah, I could be 80, like Vicki said, or I could maybe be 80. So maybe when I'm 80, I'll finish.
Hey, Mama was hiking the
Or 80
Appalachian Trail in
days.
her 70s.
That's right. That's a
so-
good
When
example.
you think
do
you
it.
found the ark, let me know. We'll contact the Antiquities Department in Israel, and I'll get my shovel and we'll take
you
off.
won't.
As a matter of fact, my daughter said,
You won't
"You
have to
think you
contact
found the
them.
ark? She'll come back from Japan, and she'll go help us dig it up."
You won't have to contact them, they're gonna be watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
In
yeah.
fact, they might be watching me in June.
When,
Me and you, Dave. Dave, you up for a little adventure? What if we had to drive across that Scorpions Pass again? Would you do it?
Sure.
I wouldn't.
With you or without you? That's the question.
Without
They'll
me.
have
Yeah,
the
I'll
scope,
definitely do
the
that.
crosshairs.
God,
That was a bad ride.
thank goodness I wasn't there.
Dave.
John, we watched a show that they said that they had found a little gold
That's on one of the tapes. I'm sorry, we don't have tapes anymore. One of the
DVD.
I'm
Recordings.
dating myself. One of the DVDs that is here
A Simca.
from Simca, where they found a lot of interesting stuff that people had done from the period of Moses. And they actually found a small, and I wish I could remember the details, a small gold piece that was representative of the ark. And it's in a museum
In Luxembourg, I think.
Greece, I wanted to say, Turkey, in Turkey, and I believe, but it's on the DVD, and when you look at it real close, I was like, is that a cherubim? Kind of looks like a duck to me, but where do I
But it
know?
has wings.
It has wings.
Well, do a little study on cherubim. It's not the little angel,
Hey,
little baby
one person's duck is another person's cherubim. I don't know.
I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Could have been a dove. Who knows?
In Deuteronomy, it says to keep the rules that I give you this day, and it also says don't add or take away from these rules and laws. So what do we do with things that are not in Deuteronomy, like Yom Kippur?
Excellent question. That's some of the stuff I'm digging into now. Deuteronomy is the only book in the Torah. If you heard my talk in Charlotte, you'll remember that I proposed, which has now become the book project, that whenever the writers of the Bible talk about the Torah of Moses, they imply Deuteronomy. Now, let me say this. Please listen to me when I say this. I'm not suggesting that Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, that they need to be gone, done away. I'm not saying any of that. Don't add to my words. Now, back to Moses. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2 and 13:1 says, "You shall not add to or take away, so that you might guard." So the idea, when Deuteronomy, which speaks over and over about guarding the Torah, to guard the Torah is defined in Deuteronomy 4:2 and 13:1 as don't add to or take away from. It's the only book of the Torah that says that. Now, does that mean that information we get from other sources, from the other books of what we call the Torah, does that mean they're not valid? Absolutely not. There is a difference in my view, and I know there are people who don't agree with it. That's fine. That's what we love about, people have their own views. But there are other things that can help us understand but I'm talking about what did Moses write, what was rolled up, because in chapter 31, verse 24 through 26, he finishes writing the scroll. It's right there. And he said he wrote it until it was finished and gave it to the Levites who carry the ark. But the Torah's not done yet. It's not finished. But he said he finished it. So what is that document? That's what I'm looking for. That's what this book's
It's the
about.
Torah of Moses.
It's the Torah of Moses. Now look, whenever so for instance, everybody pretty much admits that Moses didn't write about his own death and burial. I mean,
That's
now,
kinda hard to do.
there are some rabbinic sources that say he did, that he wrote it through his tears. You know, he wrote, and the Lord buried Moses in the plains and, you know, and all that. Could.
God
I
took him
mean,
out, showed him
but-
the promised land, he wrote it down.
Ross, I know this is maybe simplistic thinking, but, okay, so
That's it, right.
Moses spoke with God
Ambidextrous.
face to face, mouth to mouth. He got these instructions, the Torah, the instructions for life and how to relate to God and your fellow man. God, I don't believe God stopped with Moses. He continued to give instruction to the people through the prophets, through the
Mhm.
writings. So, to me, God's instructions are valuable. I mean,
Yeah.
like
The-
you're saying, there's much to be gained, and we don't throw it out because
yeah,
it's not written by Moses.
the
The
scroll.
only thing is though, with the prophets, most of the time, the prophets were sent in to try and turn people around to
Yeah.
go back to,
Yeah.
After they had added it.
The Torah.
Right, you know, they tried to get them.
Yeah.
you guys have wandered off
But these are
again,
still
here you go.
instructions.
Oh, yeah, but,
You're-
but it's,
You
you
better
know,
do
it's go
this
back
or
to the
this is gonna
laws,
happen, you know?
Now-
Redirect.
redirect.
Now, Sylvia said just the laws without narrative. Now, some have proposed that the scroll of Moses is Deuteronomy 12 through 26. That is not my view, and I prove it. I will prove it. Because there is narrative involved in that scroll. Now, look, this is the way things this is the way it gets lost right here.
See, but it wasn't given to Aaron, it was given to Aaron.
Before y'all
Yeah.
lose them, I'm gonna
Yeah.
write it. I mean, I'm gonna throw them away.
Oh, we do that all the time. These are important papers. We're gonna put them someplace.
Where did I
that
put those
we
theater
won't
tickets?
forget.
In a safe place.
Yeah.
How come we can't find them? They're
What
in a
if-
safe place.
What if in our day, through careful sleuthing, the Torah of Moses could be found again? I
Oh, the
that
original?
Think
would
we'd be
be-
surprised? You think?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, if the Dead Sea Scrolls can make it,
So,
it's a dry place over
you know, I
most of the time.
mentioned one of the things that I researched this week. How many books are mentioned in Scripture that we no longer have? You ever hear of the book of Jasher, as we call it in English? It's mentioned a couple of times. We have a couple of quotes from it. That's all we have of it. Write this in the book of Jasher. Teach the children of Judah the use of the bow. You know, as it says in the book of Jasher, and then it quotes. What about the book of the wars of the Lord? And it gives a quote about how the sun stood still. We don't have the book of the wars of the Lord. The book of Enoch. We have other books from antiquity that are referenced that aren't still valid. What we have to do then is look for evidences within what we have and start there. So that's the goal. That's the goal.
That's, you know, if you were gonna do it, if you were a detective and this was your goal, you know, you would have to start with what is known, what are facts that you know now, what you have now,
Yep,
and go from there,
that's right.
basically. So that's kind of where you're at.
It's a mystery and it's a mission for all of us. Ultimately, what we all want, I believe, is to find what it is that God wants us to do, how it is that we're supposed to live, and then to live thereby. And I think that's all of our goals, so we're headed in the right direction.
And
with
I'm
that.
pretty sure it doesn't include, you know, getting a backhoe and go digging up the Holy Land, but
Well,
I'm pretty sure. I'm just guessing mind you, but I'm thinking it wasn't that important.
So,
We have
let's
the,
try that.
yeah, I mean, I understand, but we have the information in the scriptures that's needed to live a good life.
there is that, but there's always something like if somebody said, "Hey, John, this is Ross. I'm standing at the foot of Nebo right now, and I just found a cave. And the cave was covered up. I just happened to stumble, and I fell in, and the ground gave way, And I'm inside of it now. I just stepped out because I didn't have cell service. I'm going back in. There are 2 stone tablets in a little wooden box here. I don't think you would say, don't worry about it, Ross, I've got the Bible.
We got copies.
I got copies. I know how
I'd
to
say,
live.
Ross, cover it up and get out of there before the Jordanians get their hands on you.
So, but anyway, it's yes, and yes, we do have enough. I mean, look, if we just simply loved our neighbor as ourselves, and if we just loved God with all our heart and all our soul and mind, I think we'd be in a pretty good place. But inquiring minds want to know. You know, I when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, you brought up, you know, the copy of the Isaiah scroll is found. It's complete.
Part of the reasons why, you know, I feel it's similar in that, what you just said is, you know, if we still had those scrolls, we'd more than likely worship them. I mean, it would. if we had
Yeah,
those things.
there-
So
there's
my-
another
My
thing.
mind is, why were they, I guess I'm gonna use the word taken away. Why did God allow them to disappear at this point? You know, why don't we have the original documents? Well, so on and so forth, that kind of line of thought. And, you know, so, you know, that's easily, you can
And
point
are
to
we
faith.
putting the Ark of the Covenant as a object of,
Was it?
Well,
Or was it
and to
as an
think
object?
about,
Can you
What?
imagine how we
he,
would find
he
out?
provided the Ark of the
Oh,
Covenant for a very long time to the children of Israel. And over and over and over again, they turned to idolatry and they did things, and finally, the Ark disappeared. Israel was taken apart. The people were drug off, and what does that say? That obviously, having the Ark didn't do them any good, and they didn't. They were behaving in a manner where they apparently didn't deserve it. Now,
You go out and buy
if
you-
everything's changed, well, who knows?
You go out and buy you a new car and it comes with an owner's manual.
But didn't Jeremiah say that, you know, God said, I will write those on your heart?
That's what Vicky just said. So without all of, she just texted, I wrote that in the feed. So if that is so, and we were not faced with all of this teaching and indoctrination that we've all grown up in, would it be on our heart?
Clearly, the goal is that.
It might
Clearly,
be-
the goal. In fact,
might
this
be
is.
memorized.
Where did I leave today's class?
Kids just know.
I think in today's class, when you wrap it up and say the ark is missing, oh my goodness, the ark is missing.
We'll never know.
We'll never find it. It's been missing for thousands of years, and then one prophet said, it doesn't matter. Why does it not matter? Why does it not matter? That's next week's class.
Mark
What
says
what's really important?
Film at 11.
He believes whatever. Believe we are given whatever books, relics, etc. We need at this time
Absolutely.
as we need it.
Right.
Whenever, I don't have a problem with my Isaac. Whatever it is will be found when we need it. Whatever,
Yeah.
wherever, whatever it is that we need will be found. When we need it.
Absolutely.
You know, we're on a need-to-know basis, basically.
When the
Yeah.
student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah. Yeah, and you think about it. I mean.
Snatch the pick.
Up until
That's
the
nice.
discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the oldest copy of the Hebrew Bible dated to the 9th century. So people would say, you people are nuts. You believe that the Bible goes back all that time? It's only, back to the 9th century. Are you kidding me? And then, guess what happens? They find the Dead Sea Scrolls. And these scrolls, containing some of the same material, are 2,200 years old. So then they're like, well, okay, so you got something.
Okay, so it only
2,200
goes
years
2,200 years. Yeah.
So, what's to say that?
Well, that's
something
like
on
David's a myth till they find these stones that
Yeah.
indicate that David really existed. No, by the way, Solomon existed.
Yeah.
You know, how many of these people do you have to dig up to say, yeah, that they really existed before you go, well, there's something to this.
Yeah,
And we wouldn't really know a lot about the Dead Sea Scrolls if it wouldn't have been pushed by several people that really brought it out to the public
Yep.
view. It was hidden for years and years and
That's
years
right.
before it was even found. And then, what does it say? Where are they exactly? Kind of stuff.
Yeah, discoveries that put us in touch with and validated. I love the way Richard Friedman put it. He said, "Play like we didn't have a Bible.
Right,
You didn't. Let's say that you didn't have any of this."
right.
And archaeologists started digging up things in the Holy Land, and they find evidence. Let's say they find a stela with the word King David on it. And you'd say, we don't know anything about this guy. I mean, who was he? You know, did he have a family? What kingdom did he rule over? Oh, we just found a seal of a King Hezekiah. Who is this? I wish we knew something about him. Who is this kingdom of Judah? Who is this? What does this coin represent? And then all of a sudden, somebody said, I found a book. And this book tells the history of David and the Hezekiah. You remember you found that seal? We've got a seal of him. It mentions him. He was a righteous king. Can you imagine how the scholarly world would be different? They would go, you mean I have a context for the archaeology?
Don't be so sure, because in that movie on Patterns of Evidence,
Oh, here we
when
go.
when they looked at the scroll that the Egyptian scribe
I know.
wrote,
Yeah.
they were like, "Oh, that's just coincidence."
No, but to finish,
Yeah.
to finish my point.
That's the archaeologist.
Yeah, but my point is that's because that's the way they approach it. So my point is that his point is very valid in that if you didn't know any of this history and then you found one, it would put the shoe on the other foot. It would at least give them a context.
Right.
Whereas now they look at the context and they look for ways to make it not fit the archaeology.
Right.
Right.
And I know what you're saying. You know, there are always going to be minimalists who go, oh, it's not that guy. It's not that Hezekiah. Well, he's got the same daddy. Yeah, but it's not. Well, he's got the same son. It's still not.
We found this tomb, and it's everybody in there that was
Yeah.
related to Yahshua,
Yeah.
Yeshua, but it couldn't be him.
No,
Right.
not
that
him.
one.
And how
Not that
many,
one.
I mean, the idea of time and the way information is transferred to the next generation and so on and so forth. Look at some of the falsehoods. Okay, take Abraham Lincoln, for instance.
Yeah.
I was growing up thinking, Abraham Lincoln had a penny and it was overcharged. He walked 20,000 miles.
Yeah, you get all these
Well,
legends.
this research now, that was made up.
Yeah.
It's folklore.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that's 130 years, 40 years, whatever it is now. I keep
Right.
going back.
Yeah.
In our history,
Yeah.
and we're talking 4,000, 5,000 years ago
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, something came out of your class today that you didn't mean to bring out, but for me, I went, holy cow.
Holy
Was
cow!
it-
That's
a
wrong.
good one. You're in the right place for that. Holy cow!
Is it made out of gold?
Be careful. Be careful, Lyndon.
Holy
No, I went,
cow!
oh my goodness, because
Where did it come from?
Deuteronomy 24:16 says, no one else can pay for your sin,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
And then somehow I flipped to Exodus 34:7, which says, essentially, the sins of the fathers will be
Right,
visited
4
upon the
generations.
4 generations. And I'm going, whoa, the sins carry down through the generations, but nobody can remove those sins but you yourself,
Well,
you know?
Yeah.
That-
had it covered.
That's
Or-
hard.
Or something different. But we'll have to get into that.
Okay,
later.
yeah,
But-
so I'm bringing
but
up
think about,
something
so
else.
Jeremiah provides an answer. I did also say this. Deuteronomy 24:16 is the Torah. That's what the Torah says. Jeremiah mentions a proverb about sour grapes. The answer is in that proverb.
Sure.
So is that a proverb? It's interesting. But
Yeah,
again,
you
we
said-
have taken the
Like the
lid
middle,
off
yeah,
of
yeah.
plenty today.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, it's been a wonderful time. I appreciate everybody spending all this time with us, and come back and see us next Saturday morning, 10:30, same time, same channel.
Same
We
bat
pick
channel.
up with our hero where we left off this week.
Good.
Shabbat shalom, Shavua
Shabbat
tov.
shalom. Shabbat.